Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We begin today talking about weeds in Oklahoma's wheat crop. We're joined today by Misha Manuchehri, our extension weed specialist. And Misha, why don't we just kind of start off talking about what you're seeing and hearing around the state?
Yeah, so for the most part, our wheat crop looks pretty good. We've had some timely rains. For our weeds, they also look pretty good depending on what kind of weed management plans, if any, that we've implemented. But we're starting to get a little late to make some kind of chemical control application, and so maybe a good time to assess if you are going to go out, whether it's worth the investment or not.
So if you're trying to weigh those options, what's the criteria?
So our winter annual weeds, those that emerged in the fall, winter, that producing flowers and seeds now, most of our herbicides don't move well in plants that are that far along in their growth stage. So just be thinking about what level of control you're really gonna get and if it's worth the cost and application of that herbicide. We're starting to see our spring, summer annual weeds come up. There are some things that we can do, but we have application restrictions for some products. So some important timings to think about. Jointing, for the most part, we're past that stage. Now we're looking at flag leaf for some products, and then also right before boot stage.
So if you haven't applied, if you miss the window and things are not looking so great, is there some advice that you can give growers who maybe have that scenario?
Yeah. Take note of where your problem fields are. Some of our winter annual grasses are really hard to identify at the seedling stage. So if you have that plant that's headed out, it has a flower, a seed on it, now would be a great time to identify it. It's the easiest time to ID plants. Send it to us, send it to an extension educator. Let's find out what it is. So next year when it's this small, we know what it is and we can implement a plan.
So the documentation at this stage.
Yeah.
Well, as we sort of turn the corner now and the wheat really takes off toward harvest, what kind of guidance do you have?
At this point, you probably have most of your applications out, so we're hoping for some weather that's favorable and getting in the field and hopefully having a successful harvest. And then again, just scouting fields, taking good documentation, and maybe if we weren't as timely as we wanted to be this year, planning for next year.
And speaking of planning, I know a lot of folks are kind of laying out the plans for summer crops.
Yes.
And it's time now to get ahead for those summer weeds.
Yes.
What kind of advice do you have?
Fallow weed management is critical when we think about moisture for that next crop. We don't want our weeds taking up those resources. So whether you have a fallow period or maybe you're going straight to a crop like soybeans and you're moving in with something quick, starting clean is really important to give your plant that competitive edge.
Great to think about, and of course we'll continue that conversation in the days and weeks ahead.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, Misha.
Wes Lee with this week's Mesonet weather report. This past week, we saw a few showers make their way into the state. This 7-day rainfall map shows a nice 1-inch plus band through central Oklahoma and into the far southeast. In the driest part of the state, Hollis, Altus, and Mangum each received about 3/4 of an inch. Looking at the soil moisture situation, we see that most of the state is still in great shape. The 2-inch fractional water index for April 9th shows mostly 0.9s to 1s. An index of 1 would indicate a near saturated soil, while a 0 would be at the plant wilting point. Only 2 sites are below 0.5, Hollis and Fitztown. Deeper in the soil, at 4 inches, we see a similar trend. Fitztown looks better, but we add Altus and Blackwell to the list of stations with 0.5 or lower indexes. Our deepest moisture sensors are at 24 inches. However, they are not located at every site. Of the sites reporting, none are close to the 0.5 index level. This graph shows soil moisture at 3 depths in Hollis over the past week. We see the recent rains impacted the 2-inch sensor indicated by the red line, but didn't make it down to the 4-inch depth shown with the yellow line. Hopefully, additional rains will reach this area soon. Gary is up now with more info on Oklahoma drought and weather.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, what a week it's been for weather in Oklahoma. We had summer return with some heat, some wind, and some fire, then a quick turnaround to winter, and then we had a little bit of rain. So everything looking just about normal for Oklahoma, right? Well, as usual, let's get right to the drought monitor, see where we stand. Now, this is before any of the rain this week has been figured in, but we still continue with those abnormally dry conditions down in far southwestern Oklahoma, dangerously close to going to moderate drought, the lowest drought category, if we don't see good moisture down there. Now, if we look at the rainfall for this growing season, that's March 1st through April 9th, we see that some areas of the state are doing pretty good. West central Oklahoma, nearly 175% of normal. The Panhandle doing pretty well, Texas County and western Cimarron County. But other parts of the state, especially across eastern Oklahoma, they're from 50 to 75% of normal. With those deficits, a couple of things that have been working in our favor are the lack of sunshine, so a lack of evaporation, and also a lack of those really high temperatures. If you look at these graphs for percent of sunshine across the state and also maximum temperatures, you can see that for most of the first 3 to 4 months of the year, you can see we've been cloudier than normal and also cooler than normal in the afternoons. And that's pretty important because, again, that keeps that evaporation down and lessens the stress on the soil moisture. So now we enter the warm season, the real warm season, as we go from April into May and then into June. And that's when the rainfall is much more important. And that's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
I think we all can agree it's been a very interesting winter and early spring in Oklahoma. Derrell, how is that impacting cattle prices in Oklahoma?
Well, you know, the market impacts are a little harder to measure. Producers have had tremendous challenge this winter. It's been a wet, sloppy winter. Now we're trying to have spring, but this last week we had temperatures almost 90 degrees one day, and 2 days later it was a high of 40s. That's hard on animals. It's from a health management standpoint. We're still having to feed these animals. We're not quite to green grass yet, not consistently. And the other thing that comes up this time of the year, of course, is that wildfire threats become bigger. And so we've got lots of wind right now. Last year, a year ago in April, we had big wildfires in western Oklahoma. Of course, we had severe drought conditions at that time, and we don't have that this year, so probably not as much of an issue, but still certainly could be one of our challenges at this point in time.
Now, that's Oklahoma. There's also been some interesting weather to the north of us. They've had rain, they've had snow, they've had blizzards up in Nebraska on into the Midwest. Is that impacting prices?
Well, there certainly are some more noticeable market impacts. It's always a little challenging to sort out what's what, but in a lot of feedlot country, we've had adverse conditions. We see that in our carcass weights, for example, which are well below a year ago, and that's clearly due to the weather. It's delayed some marketing of cattle. They don't finish as fast. Productivity's been impacted. In fact, Kansas feedlot data tells us that the biggest impact is a bit on gains. Cattle don't gain as well, but the bigger impact is feed efficiency really goes down in this bad weather. So again, it's a big cost for the producers of those cattle, whether it's a feedlot or out in the country. But there's also some overall market impacts, and we'll probably see some of those market impacts here for several more weeks.
A lot of people don't necessarily think of that. They think of the death loss when it comes to cattle. Is the death loss playing into the markets at all?
Well, again, we don't really know what the numbers are, and we won't know for a while yet, but when you add up the winter weather impacts plus the flood direct impacts, there'll be several thousand head of cattle involved. Those are huge impacts for the producers involved. Are they going to impact the markets directly in terms of the loss of cattle? Probably not. As big as that sounds and as big as it is, we probably didn't lose that many cattle, certainly to the floods alone, but and the winter weather losses may have actually been bigger than the flood losses, but the two together are going to be a significant number for those people involved. And it ranges all over the place, so it wouldn't really show up as a supply impact because we had everything from baby calves to potentially some feedlot cattle involved. So that's spread out over many months of market supply, timing.
As far as all that goes, I mean, it's been, like I said earlier, it's been an interesting winter and early spring. Does that change your outlook for 2019 overall?
Well, again, I don't think it makes major changes in our outlook. We've pulled back beef production just slightly. Again, these carcass weights through the first quarter were below a year ago, and you know, we'll see how the rest of the year plays out. Overall cattle numbers, again, probably weren't changed that much, so it hasn't had major impacts. If anything, it's made supplies a little tighter here in the early part of the year, and probably on an annual basis is gonna boost these markets just slightly as a result of that. But no major changes in what we expected. This is still a year where beef production is continuing to grow, but at a slower pace than in previous years, and now probably even a little less than we earlier expected.
Steady as we go.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
We finally reached springtime in Oklahoma, and that means to me that calf working time will be just around the corner. It usually takes place in May after the calves are, for the most part, 1 to 2 months of age. At calf working time, I think it's critical that we remind producers to use good beef quality assurance guidelines when they're giving the injections that these calves will receive at calf working time. The beef quality assurance guidelines really emphasize the concept of location of the injections, and particularly giving them in the neck area. Some of the injections that you might be giving, whether it's blackleg or for some of the respiratory diseases such as IBR and BVD, some of them may suggest that you can give the injection either subcutaneously, just under the skin, or intramuscularly, IM, where you actually put the injection clear down into the muscle. If it gives you that choice, I would strongly recommend that you consider subcutaneous, because certainly you'll do less damage to the muscle tissue. If in fact it does say that you must give the injection IM or intramuscularly, let's make sure that we do it in the neck area so that we're not damaging tissue in those higher price cuts that eventually later on will become steaks and roasts that our customers and our consumers will consume. Another part of the beef quality assurance guideline at calf working time is to keep a record of the injections that we're giving, and I think this is critical for several reasons. One of which is that those injections may have a withdrawal time. We need to keep track of what date we gave the injection and what date it is that is now eligible for that calf to be sold and gone into the regular markets. So having a good set of records, I think, is really, really important as part of the calf working procedure this spring. If you'd like to learn a little more about beef quality assurance guidelines and some of these things that are really common sense but good ideas for producers to use, go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. We've got a show link there. It's to the beef quality assurance guidelines. They're used nationally. It's bqa.org, and that'll give you a lot more information about the good management practices to use on the calves this spring, perhaps cows that you'll treat this summer, or any calf working, cow working that you'll do in the future. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
From the wheat field to the brewery, not for a cold one, but for SUNUP's Ed Barron to show us the alternative uses for spent brewer's grain.
We've started in 2015, just celebrated our 4th anniversary. We basically like to take quality ingredients and produce quality beer that people enjoy drinking. We extract sugars from the grain, we steep it like a tea, and we try to pull as many sugars as we possibly can. From there, we basically sift it through a colander to separate the liquid, which is then called wort, and that goes into our boil kettle. And what's left over is what we call spent grain, which is essentially all those grain particles that are left over.
It's estimated that about 40 million tons of this waste is generated every year. and we don't really have any great uses for it at this point. For many years it was landfilled. Now a lot of it is used as animal feed. We actually got samples from Iron Monk right here in Stillwater of the spent grain. So we want to make higher value products from typical waste streams in the food industry. And this is a known pretty large source of food waste that is really underutilized.
So we've been making potential snack products using brewer spent grain. So far we've come up with 3 potential products.
Which we thought was a great idea. It goes in line with what we do anyway. So they just contacted us, asked if we'd be willing to offer them some samples of our spent grain. We of course said yes. I mean, we try to do as much with the university as we can. I'm an OSU grad. We've got a couple other OSU alumni on staff here, so anytime we can help the university, we can.
They taste very grainy, but would go good with a beer and in the form of a cracker, but really not too bad.
They taste pretty good. At first, without any seasoning on it, it tastes a little malty, but after playing with the formulations a bit, we were able to come together on something that sort of accentuates the malty, kind of bitter, sometimes chocolatey flavor.
We eat spent grain all the time. Our brewer Sam actually likes to eat the dog treats that we sell. It tastes just like bland oatmeal, kind of. So yeah, I mean it's a pretty good product, and we eat it pretty much all the time.
The reason for choosing a cracker type of product is the brewer's spent grain actually has a fair amount of fiber, lots of protein and minerals also, and a cracker can really hide that crunchy texture that you're going to find in a high fiber product.
I mean, there's still a lot of enzymes in that grain that are still good and useful. So with us, it's a matter of twofold. One, just from an environmental and just a conscientious human being standpoint, we want to be able to do better and to limit our waste a little bit. And then from a small business standpoint, if we can somehow create something that we can market and sell, or just create an extra revenue stream for us out of a product that would otherwise go in the garbage, then just kudos to us. I mean, it's all about just trying to maximize the dollars that we can get out of the ingredients that we use, as well as just limiting our carbon footprint and making less of a harmful impact on the world.
You get the added nutritional benefits, but still a product that is very palatable for people.
We value the science and what it brings to the table aside from just beer. So yeah, we're always excited and happy to be a part of anything that brings change.
Once again, there's really not been much movement in the wheat markets, but Kim, really, that's not the only market that's been kind of stagnant.
Well, if you look at current prices for the state of Oklahoma on wheat, you got the current price, cash price at $4.30. You can forward contracted harvest for $4.27. Not much difference. Corn, $3.46 right now, $3.70, slightly a little higher for harvest. Sorghum, $3.31, current, $3.55 at harvest. Soybeans, $7.87, $8.40 at harvest, and cotton, 71.4 cents versus 76 cents at harvest.
We hear those numbers quite a bit, but there are some forecasts that have come out looking at a larger range there.
Yeah, if you look at the Food and Agriculture Policy Research Institute, they released their 10-year estimate, our projection for crop prices. You look at wheat, now these are U.S. average prices, average annual prices. The range for the next 10 years they had at $5.08 to $5.31. Corn at $3.53 to $3.83. Sorghum $3.37 to $3.50, soybeans $8.78 to $9.09, cotton $64 to $72 per hundredweight.
So with all those numbers, they don't sound too promising. How do Oklahoma producers make a profit off of those?
Well, you got to take these numbers with a grain of salt. Now, I do believe that's probably the best estimate as you look out in the future. You can go back 5 or 6 years ago, they released one, and I said, our prices, wheat prices are up $7.50. I said, the floor of the prices is down around $4.30. We know we got below that. And so, and I kind of, wrote those estimates off, and they were pretty doggone accurate. And they're going to need these farmers are going to need these numbers as they're making decisions on policy issues. But right now, you can look at U.S. prices for wheat. Oklahoma's average price in February was $4.45. U.S. average was $5.33. Corn, our price was $3.86. U.S. is $3.60. Soybeans, they don't give you a U.S. price. $8.52 was the average Oklahoma. Ours was below $8. And cotton, $6.75, and our cotton was, above 70 cents, up around 74, 75 cents. So you got to take and adjust those prices back to local. Plus, we know that prices aren't going to be in a 30 or 40 cent price range. We're going to have $2, $3, $4. Soybeans, you think in the next 10 years we're going to see $10, $12, 13 beans? Of course we are. You think we're going to see $8 wheat again? Yes, we're going to see $8 wheat again. But those high prices, relatively high prices, are going to be short-lived. What producers are going to have to do is, one, keep their costs relatively low while producing a quality product that the market wants, and have some product to sell when those prices get up relatively high.
Produce good quality product and be ready to sell, pull the trigger when you need to.
And you've got to manage costs. Right now you look at those prices, those projected prices are at probably the average Oklahoma cost per acre, so right at break even. So you've got to manage costs, you've got to really need above average yields and below average production costs.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Finally, today we meet the 4-H'er who is using a simple yet effective value to improve her community: kindness. SUNUP's Curtis Hare is in Woods County.
Spring has finally crept into Woods County. For 5th graders at Lincoln Elementary in Alva, the arrival of spring is just a signal summer's around the corner.
Plus 3, and then how many numbers are between 4 and 9?
But for 10-year-old Kayla Leeper, school is awesome.
Top of the page, Kayla, can you read that?
And the arrival of spring means the arrival of newborn lambs on her family farm. And she still has more time to continue something that's changed her family for the good. Her 4-H project.
I just like making them smile.
It was about 2 years ago, and Kayla came up to me and asked me, or told me that she wanted to do something for others. And I said, well, what are you wanting to do? And she said, well, I want to do something kind. I want to help people.
Kayla's mother, Terry, says she wasn't surprised Kayla wanted to do a kind gesture, but it did catch her off guard when Kayla turned down her suggestion with an idea of her own.
I said, okay, well, we have the nursing homes around here if you want to do something like that. No, she was more interested in helping people who were in the hospital.
I kind of wanted to start it so I can make people in the world happy and just make them not feel so sad all the time.
And how she would accomplish that goal was through a simple yet beautiful idea: a care package.
I knew that my age and my mom's age and my dad's age and my sister's age, just people that are my family's age, are there. And I knew if I was sick, I wanted someone to just help me and give me stuff to make me happy.
Using her own money along with some family donations, Kayla bought all the items for the gift bags. Kayla and Terry drove the 3 hours all the way down to the Stevens Cancer Center in Oklahoma City to deliver the packages, 150 of them.
She said, I want to do this again next year. And I said, okay, well, we'll do that again next year. So we had a fundraiser. So our fundraiser was a spaghetti dinner, and 4-H members helped with that. And we raised quite a bit of money doing that. The community was fantastic.
Kayla's in her second year delivering packages. And since she recently joined 4-H, she decided to turn her hospital visits into a volunteer program for the club, Kayla's Kindness Project.
We're so proud to have Kayla in the Alva 4-H Club. She's a relatively new member and has hit the ground running and does a great job, and obviously has an outstanding community service project.
And right now I'm doing kids, so kids get more toys than adults because I think kids get more bored than adults. I usually put a squishy or something in their stress ball.
I think my sister's project is awesome. I'm really proud of her. There's kids out there that are her age that have to go through that, and we would if our parents went through that, we would want somebody to do that.
It's not hard for the Leeper family to imagine. And there's significance to why Kayla started with the Stevens Cancer Center. It's where someone extremely close to her went for treatment. Her grandfather, Johnny.
Whenever my grandpa went to do treatment, I came with him a couple of times, and just seeing people that are struggling, I didn't really like that. Some people are just having a bad day, so I just wanted to brighten up their spirit.
It really makes me proud for both of the girls to show the compassion and love that they have for other people. It makes me just super proud to know that they are out helping others, they're being kind to others, it's authentic.
So far, Kayla's Kindness Project has added 2 more hospitals, and she's delivered 200 packages this year. She recently received the Darlene Like Volunteer 4-H Award, and even her classmates have jumped on board. Kayla says she wants to start more kindness projects, and when she gets older, she wants to be, not surprisingly, a nurse. But for now, she'll focus on her packages, finding the right items for each of them, and capping each one off with a handwritten note of encouragement, proving once again that a little act of kindness goes a long way. In Woods County, I'm Curtis Hare.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.